Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where the topic is New Adaptive Microsoft PPM with Microsoft Project, Azure DevOps, and Jira using Power Apps. My name is Doug Wellesby, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Jim Patterson. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit questions. I'll address these during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I'll be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Doug, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. We're excited about this topic today of new adaptive PPM. Using the Microsoft technologies, a variety of tools, and the Power Apps platform, essentially a solution that's powered by Microsoft using one plan. Now, the need for this solution is really driven by the age of digital transformation. As companies move from more brick and mortar type of companies into more digital operations, the need to change the way we do business, our business models, the way we reach our customers, et cetera, needs to change. And a lot of that has to do with software and technology development. This transformation brings about a lot of changes for organizations, not least of which is the fact that the speed of change continues to accelerate. What we used to have as far as market windows for products and services that might have been 5 years might be as little as 18 months or less before we have to come out with new models or new innovations to the products and services that we provide. The competitive balance and the competitive pressures are more than they've ever been before. So we need to accelerate the way we do business and the way we develop things and the way we produce for our customers. The inevitable impact is there is challenges across the enterprise for all different kinds of roles. You know, from the executives who have to come up with and strategize new ways of doing business, new ways of reaching the customer, new business models, new ways to monetize things. The PMOs who now have to manage a variety of different projects, let alone more and more of it being technology and software development driven. There is then the software development folks and other people who deliver on the projects, as well as the people who then have to support these things once they've been delivered and they're put into operational mode. The key is that in the inevitable impacts, some of them might be, we need to improve the speed at which we innovate. We have higher expectations of consumers out there today. They're more savvy and more educated and more demanding based upon the speed of which things are delivered. The demand for simplicity is out there. So even though our technologies may have a lot of complex back ends, the users who use the systems and technologies expect very simple, ready to go, just plug it in, turn it on, and be able to be proficient with it right away. There's also the rise of competition. Because of the advent of the cloud, folks can have access to technologies and capabilities that in the on-premise days where you needed your own server farms, opens the doors for smaller and mid-sized companies to compete with the big boys in making those things happen. So you never know where the next rising star or next rising competitor is going to come from. People also want good time to value. They want basically to have things quickly and get value from their investments instead of waiting for big bangs later in the time frame. And the ability to adapt to change. Just because we have the idea of what our customers want, both internal and external now, that could rapidly change even midstream in our products and our projects. And the ability to actually adapt to that change is paramount to our success these days. Layer on to that the demands of what modern work management within organizations is bringing. Some modern problems that we have today is that work is happening everywhere. There is in all parts of the organization, and oftentimes that means we have silos of information and silos of departments and organizations, and sometimes because of the fact that it's disjointed and disparate, we lose track at times. But our teams, because of the cloud and the easy access of tools, are now choosing the tools that they want to work the way they want. And we end up with a proliferation of tools within organizations, which we'll talk about here in a second. Also, we have not necessarily in the project management realm, more occasional or accidental project managers, as they're often called, folks that whose role is something else primarily, but they get dubbed to be project manager for a specific endeavor or initiative or effort. And they need something that's easy. They can't have something that's complex because they're not highly trained project managers. They're filling a role. And there's an expectation in younger users today. They use the term millennials, but not just millennials, but in our app culture, in our mobile phones and things, people expect to be able to load an app, be able to work with it right away without a lot of training or indoctrination in order to make those things happen. They want simple visual tools, but high capabilities. And then our business processes cross functions and systems. So whether it be cross functional silos, whether it be across geographically dispersed teams, our projects and are bringing in participants who are varied and far apart. And we're even using more and more as far as partnering with our customers, with our vendors, and other people that are external to our organization as well. So some of the solutions to these things is we need solutions that'll give us that transparency for all this work to bring it together so that we can get the big picture, regardless of where the work is being performed. We also have to be versatile. So we have to be able to accommodate different work frameworks or methodologies to be flexible on those so that the teams can have different latitude depending on the nature and the type of work that they're doing and what makes them most effective. It also has to be intuitive, start fast, simple interfaces, modern web experience, those types of things, not things that are highly complex that require high training or high ramp up in order to get in. And then just integrate it, run your business end to end on a single platform or something that's consolidated so that you don't have to go to a myriad of different places to get the information that you want. So what this means is organizations with the advent of cloud and the easy access of tools can have a proliferation of tools that's just mind-numbing sometimes. If you look down the left-hand side of the different capabilities that organizations are looking for or processes that they have to have, and then across the top, maybe functional areas of the organization, here's a diagram from just one client we worked with saying these are the different tools that people are using to do these different things. And then ultimately, somebody's trying to get a complete picture of all this, even though these things are in different files, databases, and other data sources. That data all has to be mashed up and then somehow transformed into something that's meaningful from an information perspective. And then on top of that, organizations are using different work methods, a blend of approaches. Just because an organization wants some business and organizational agility doesn't mean that everybody has to do agile methods or agile frameworks in the way they do projects. The Gartner, PMI basically said that smart organizations realize that using agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility, that most organizations are more likely to use several different approaches because different types of efforts and different types of work may lend themselves to different approaches, whether they be agile iterative, whether they're more lean approaches, more traditional waterfall, or even some more other things like extreme programming. So the organizations that do these things and pick the right approach for the right types of work are the ones that are probably the most agile. So ask yourself, where are you in the agile transformation spectrum? The analysts use the term moving to the left, and this diagram kind of indicates that, where on the right-hand side, traditional project and portfolio management, where we've been for a number of years, or it goes way back, at least a few decades, is more traditional, more based on more waterfall approaches and traditional governance processes. And then people more and more are going through some form of agile transformation or a journey in that regard. But that journey is not a short one, especially if organizations are trying to change the way they think and do work. Now, even if they aspire to get all the way to the left there, which is pure agile, and then having agile portfolio management, they are either going to pass through or even stay in an adaptive portfolio management mode, meaning on my way to full agile transformation, there's going to be a period of time, which may be years, where I'm actually doing both waterfall, agile, and maybe some combinations thereof, in being in more of an adaptive mode. Or I may decide as my organization that I have different types of work, that some of it is conducive to agile and some of it is more conducive to traditional waterfall or some blend of those. and then I may be forever in some type of adaptive mode where I have a hybrid type of project mix going through. So ask yourself where you're at in this and what it is that you're trying to achieve. But the idea is that wherever we are in this journey, we have to be effective and we have to be able to manage our portfolios of work. So an adaptive PPM solution not only accommodates different work methods, but also a variety of different portfolios. So if you think about, I talked about work is coming from everywhere. We've got project portfolios. There may be specific program portfolios. There may be IT service portfolios or product portfolios are some of the common ones we see there. And pulling these things all together so the organization can get information and decision support and tracking of the investments that they're making is more and more challenging as it gets more diverse. On top of that, if organizations are moving to Agile, sometimes the teams in the execution layer is very much gung-ho about Agile. They're using Agile approaches like Scrum. They're doing iterative types of approaches. They're using metrics like velocity and burn-ups and burn-downs and cumulative flow diagrams. But leadership may still want information in more traditional business metrics that they're looking for. And sometimes there has to be a consolidation and also a translation of that information as you go up through the different methodologies of waterfall or iterative and bring that information up through the organization depending on how you roll that up and how leadership wants to see the metrics and track how their investments are tracking. So with that, we're going to talk today about One Plan. And One Plan provides pre-configured solutions for these things in the Microsoft Power Apps platform, or the Power Platform, I should say, and really taking us from that strategy level all the way down to the execution level in a very flexible manner for more adaptive PPM. In the picture that we see here, we have a picture that's a very Microsoft-centric view, but we have a One Plan solution in Power Apps at the top that is representing a portfolio of projects, but the contributions or the execution that is supporting those projects may be coming from a variety of tools. In the middle, maybe traditional Microsoft project on the desktop, Project Professional, or on the left, maybe the new lighter weight project for the web for those occasional project managers, that accidental project manager. Maybe tools like Azure DevOps for more agile types of approaches where people are managing those in that fashion. And we'll factor in today things like Jira and other tools as well. But the message is still the same. People have some options on how they use execution tools feeding into overall adaptive portfolio management. So some of you may wonder, what is the Power Platform? Well, the Power Platform from Microsoft is really designed to be a new, modern, extensible platform that spans the entire Microsoft cloud, whether it be the Office 365 cloud, the Dynamics 365, or even standalone applications that you have within your own organization or your own private clouds. It allows you to customize, extend, and build solutions in a low-code, no-code way without needing necessarily developers to make those things happen. And One Plan can leverage this. If you look at the core pieces, and there are more to it than the Power Platform, but the core ones that most people are using today are things like Power BI, which is very prevalent. People are using that with their Office 365 and Dynamics 365. Power Automate, which used to be called Microsoft Flow, allows you to automate business process and share data between applications and folks. And then the Power Apps in the middle is really that low-code, no-code environment that allows you to really tailor solutions very quickly within your own organization. And the key here is we talked about that one source before. The common data service is what it's all based on. So all data is stored in that common data service and allows us to have a common repository of information and one source of the truth if we do this in a proper manner. Now, if you're not using Power Platform today, just be assured that it is a strategic big bet by Microsoft. Satya Nadella says that Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform are on top of what they're doing in the cloud. It's the core of where Microsoft is going. So more and more of what they're doing technology and solution-wise is moving to the Power Platform. So if you're not in it today and you're thinking about it, just know that if you get on that train, it's a train that Microsoft is pursuing aggressively. So if we add the one plan piece into that mix, what do we get? We get portfolio planning at the top, more top down. We get resource capacity planning. We get financial planning at whatever level of granularity makes sense, and it can get pretty granular. And then from the bottom up, we get work execution using whatever variety of tools and methods we want. On the left, we see work plans that are coming from traditional waterfall things like Project for the Web, or Microsoft Project from the desktop, or Asana, or Office 365 Planner. And on the right, you see Agile tools like Azure DevOps and Jira listed over there. And having that all feed into a common portfolio and repository so that you get easy status reporting coming out of one data source and one portfolio mix. You can even add the strategic portfolio management layer on that. So if we think about on top of everything else that I just showed you, if you want to have senior management or leadership be able to have not only an operational portfolio of projects and initiatives, but have them mapped to strategies, that can also be accommodated in one plan and in Power Apps, and we're going to show you some of that today. So when we talked about that move to the left, a more traditional set of project management methods might use Microsoft Project for more waterfall things and leverage one plan for portfolios within the Power Apps realm. The folks in the adaptive mode, whether it's just a temporary transitionary phase or permanently, might use one plan to bring together things like Project and Azure DevOps, to use two Microsoft examples. Then on the Agile side, they may drop off the waterfall planning and just go with full Agile planning in things like Azure DevOps or Jira, and have those roll up into a full Agile portfolio in their transformation journey. And one of the key things to know about one plan is built in and for the Microsoft Cloud, and it can be surfaced in a variety of ways. Today, we're going to show it surfaced in Power Apps and leveraging the power and the capability of Power Apps. But it can also be surfaced in Microsoft Teams, in Microsoft Project Online, within Azure DevOps itself, or even within SharePoint. So realize the flexibility of what we show you here today. The demonstration is going to be based on Power Apps, but it can go so much farther than that. And another big thing about eliminating silos of information and bringing data together without doing manual mashups and having manual effort and time spent doing that is to have one plan be a hub of information, but be able to have productized connectors that bring those Agile tools into the fold, that bring your financial data from your financial systems into the fold, maybe from other traditional work management systems or project management systems, from maybe IT service management systems like a ServiceNow, or even CRM systems like Dynamics CRM or Salesforce. The idea here is that you can have an ecosystem where it all gets brought together on an automated basis rather than you doing the lifting and making those things happen with a lot of sweat and tears. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to build on last week's webinar. My colleague Jose Levy did a webinar on how to accelerate transformation with the modern project accelerator in one plan. And it was about a PPM accelerator in Power Apps. And this is going to be in the slides that you get today. So there's a link there if you want to go back and view Jose's presentation from last week. But this is going to kind of expand upon that. We really believe that you really have to have crawl, walk, run type of options for organizations. Solutions that meet you where you are. Not all organizations are at the same level of maturity. So more simple, fundamental pieces might be on the crawl side, maybe more intermediate and additional capabilities on the walk side, and then maybe more advanced, mature capabilities on the run side, and then the ability to not really have a ceiling and to be able to do all the things that you might envision you want to do within a solution set. And one plan and Power Apps give you the ability to do that. So the project accelerator that was demonstrated in the webinar last week talked about using the new Project for the Web to basically create projects and build task-based plans and do them in a flexible way. I encourage you to watch that. I'm not going to cover that in detail today. But by itself, you really just get that. You get projects and tasks that are being stored by default into that common data service in the Power Platform. Now, the accelerator in Power Apps is going to give you a variety of additional capabilities that get layered on that. So, for example, traditional project management things that you might want beyond the schedule. You might want to track issues, risks, change requests, have an onboard status reports, be able to have some governance and flows in there, or maybe some KPIs. The Power Apps can be used to provide that layer of things and extend those with entities to allow you to have those capabilities right within a Power App solution. And also in the Accelerator, out of the box, is an ability to have a project request or intake place where you can actually put ideas, project requests, and even full-blown business cases in that would eventually, within the system in Power Apps, either through workflow or other methods, be promoted eventually into projects as they go through whatever approval or intake process you have. And then be able to roll them together into programs. So aggregate projects into entities like programs. That could be based on things like product lines or service lines or by customers or whatever types of programs that you have, and be able to aggregate those things together. So the combination of the simple project for the web, where you interject a Power Apps Accelerator solution that's completely built and just installed and gives you these capabilities right out of the box, is an easy way to jumpstart your way into the basics of leveraging those types of things. Now, what we're going to get into today, oh, and by the way, the Power BI, there's native feeds from all this into Power BI report packs and dashboards so that it turns it into good relevant information for you without you having to manually create those reports. Now, the one plan adaptive PPM, if we think about extending that base project accelerator, one plan can add a lot of different capabilities that aren't in that. So if you notice, there's some voids in this diagram with the things I showed you before. In this case, it's all the things that we showed you that, and it includes the reporting from Power BI that I don't show in the diagram right now. But if we add in, first of all, one plan, we can add some real portfolio management into that, where we can talk about doing things like what-if analysis and intelligent selection and good visibility at the portfolio level, maybe not necessarily just grouped by programs. We also have the ability to add real powerful capabilities for things like prioritization and selection, for managing detailed financials on our projects and initiatives, be able to do top-down resource capacity planning, whether it be by individuals or generic types or skills or by different teams, depending on what approach you're using to manage resources. And that adds in from one plan here in the blue. And then also be able to have team members be able to have one place to go to get everything that's on their plate. Even though I might have separate projects that are being managed individually, by getting them into this one plan solution, a team member can have a My Work area where they can get all their tasks on their plate and provide status in one location and feed it back to the project managers or who's ever managing those initiatives in an electronic fashion very easily. And that can be even compounded with a timesheet if people have the needs to collect time for whatever purposes that might be, for billing clients, for chargebacks, or even for just capitalization purposes. The idea here is that we can extend this into more of a walk and maybe even a run situation from that crawl, walk, run perspective from that base accelerator that was demonstrated in last week's webinar. Then on top of that, what makes this really adaptive is the fact that with the connectors that come with one plan, you can have the projects not just come from only Project for the Web. They can come from your Agile tools like Jira or Azure DevOps, or they can use a full-blown copy of Microsoft Project Desktop to feed those plans. And those are just a subset of the things that are possible, but those are four of the more common ones that we run into in the marketplace today. So with that, we'll go into a demonstration of those capabilities to let you see it in action and what it might look like. So let me get over to here, and I'm going to go to a view here that really is what the base accelerator that we covered in last week's webinar is. If you notice here in Power Apps, which is part of your Office 365 waffle in your launcher, you can come in here and look at, for example, a list of projects. And that list of projects may be grouped by programs. You might have things pre-project that are project requests or business cases that come in, and you might have a pool of resources that you look at and then some reports. Very simple, very basic, but it gives us an ability to, for example, have one register of projects. And if I go into these particular projects, for example, I might go in and say, drill into the support customers using mobile. And the entities that we talked about earlier on, you may have a summary page with all the data and metadata that you care to apply against this. Now, you get these out of the box in the Accelerator, but you can add your own entities if you classify and categorize projects in your own way. It can give you summary information about the overall things like schedule and work effort hours that are being expended, et cetera. So the idea is you can categorize and characterize your projects in the ways that make sense for you in this summary page. Either from the project request and have it carried forward or done here, you can start capturing full business case narratives and maybe even some prioritization, and that drives a prioritization score. And these can be actually tailored beyond the Accelerator to give you what you want. You could have high-level financials, and for example, saying what is the budget and what have we spent to date, and those types of things at a very high level in the Accelerator. We'll show you some more sophisticated financials later on in the demonstration. The same thing holds true with the resources that might be on the project and characterizing those. The task-based plan, in this case with the Accelerator, leveraging the project for the web, that schedule is only one component of the overall project properties. And in this case, I've got a schedule that is rendered here, allows me to look at it either in a grid, like more like a spreadsheet mode, look at it from a more of a Kanban board, kind of like planner, or look at that same data from a more traditional timeline perspective, and how we want to look at that from a Gantt chart, et cetera. And other entities that might be in here are things like risks or issues or change requests, right? Or even be able to have one place to go to enter your status and have a history of status reports based upon the overall health and other metrics that you want to track in here. So recapping a little bit of what we saw last week, here we can now have in this Accelerator some more full breadth of project information at our fingertips beyond just that project schedule you get, say, from Project for the Web. And as we look at things like programs and we roll these up, we could look at, say, world-class customer support. And at that program level, we could look at program financials. We could look at how much program budget we have versus the project budget that's speaking for that, and be able to see how much budget we have left. And look at things like which projects are actually associated with this program, and be able to look at that at a glance as we take this project-related view, a program-related view of this. And then notes and other related items as well. And the project request from an overall continuum perspective is the ability to go in and capture a request or a business case, and at the appropriate time, be able to promote that to a project within the solution at the appropriate time, or when it makes sense to do so, or when we can get this thing funded or resourced. So this is the basics, but if you notice, it's pretty much all data and table driven, the ability to interject the project for the web schedule. Now, if we want to take this to the next tier, and we want to look in Power Apps, notice here on the left-hand side in the navigation, I have a lot more entities in here than I did in the base Accelerator. In this case, this is where you kind of light this up and take it to the next level. For example, same project register, right, that we looked at earlier, the same ability to roll those up to programs, and then perhaps being able to roll those programs up to portfolios, and be able to look at which programs are associated with these portfolios, for example, as you go on through. And you could actually even do these things in a variety of ways. If you look at this stuff more by product lines or by value streams or whatever it might be, those things can be extended that way if the program and portfolios metaphor doesn't work for you. We still have the project requests in here, but notice that we have things like a My Work area, and that gives team members the ability to come in and actually go in to see one place, and regardless of how many projects I'm assigned to, be able to go to one register and be able to provide feedback on the things that are on my plate. I could either look at it from a list perspective and update things like percent completes and start and finish dates or whatever data that you'd like them to be able to enter, or I could update these things from a Kanban board perspective and then drag and drop these things into progress as I see fit. And that could also be brought into a timesheet mode if you want. If you do have to capture time on this, it gives people the ability to capture time against these projects. Once again, extended from what we did in the base Accelerator. Give it a second to load the timesheet here for the first time. So the idea is you can capture time as you see fit, and then potentially even leverage this data not only for reporting, but maybe pass it to your financial system for things like billing or just financial reporting as well. Now, we can also then have a portfolio analyzer. So instead of looking at our projects just as a list of projects, we can look at this in a more, let's just say, colorful and informational way. So as it's rendering the portfolio, notice here, I've got not just a list of projects and some data, but I've got some very colorful KPIs and also indicators of what state the project's in. So I'm in a list type of view on these projects, and notice that each project is actually a hyperlink that allows me to drill into it, or I can actually come over to a quick launch over here and be able to get to different dimensions of the project, whether it be the quick edit, whether it be the financials, the resource plan, the work plan, etc. And we'll get into that in a moment. But also notice the icons over to the left, and this really gets to some of the adaptive pieces we talked about today. If I look over on the left-hand side, notice the icons. On this support customers using mobile project, I actually have it connected to an Azure DevOps plans for an Agile backlog. I have it connected to Microsoft Project Professional for a task-based waterfall plan. And I'm also connected to Microsoft Teams for the purposes of collaboration and things like that. And one plan within Power Apps can connect to either Teams and automatically generate team sites for you, or you can choose to use SharePoint sites in lieu of that if that's the mode that you're used to working in. But if I drill into any one of these projects, well, before I do that, let's go into the different views here. Notice I'm looking at some KPIs and some data elements and these list views. But you can have a variety of different views in here. I might have a more of a, let's just say financial view, where I wanted to see how we're doing across the high-level financials of this across the entire portfolio. Here we go. And so whatever categories, budget versus forecast or expense and revised forecasts and budget variances and returns on investment and such, those are things that we can all work with here and actually look at those things. And you can add columns of data here to these views anytime you want. So whatever's available, what came with the system or what you add as far as your own type of fields of data can be added to these views at any given point in time. I could look at this from more of a schedule summary request. So by looking at the schedule, I can get more of a timeline perspective on when things are due rather than, say, a financial perspective, and look at things like the graphical timeline and maybe the milestones that looks like we have to hit or that are scheduled within those. And then be able to go in here and look at, say, I don't know, how we're spending our work effort on these or how we're looking at prioritizing our projects. So these are all capabilities that people always are asking us for, to be able to have it all in one place. Here's the effort hours and the variances on those and whether we're on track or not from a resource utilization perspective, or whether or not we want to use some prioritization method, whether it's more traditional, more business driver-based prioritizations where we have certain drivers and we want to understand how well these potential projects or projects align with those drivers, like strategic alignment. Is it going to lower cost or increase revenue? Is it going to improve employee retention, et cetera? And have the values here drive a prioritization score that we can rank these by. Or maybe use some more modern things like some lean prioritization and using some lean metrics to generate a weighted shortest job first, for example, in the more type of agile and lean portfolio management types of approaches to prioritizing projects. So you can use numerics, but whatever your model is that you're using today, if you're using one, then say a spreadsheet and such, it can all be modeled right here in a central solution and leveraged in the context of your overall project and portfolio management. Now, these lists and these views can be done however you like. And you can even do looking at these from a more agile perspective, like from more of a Kanban board perspective, and understand through either columns and or swim lanes. I'm looking at swim lanes by business unit, or I might want to look at, a swim lane by, say, stage, what stage the project is in. in the create stage or whatever, and then maybe use the business unit or the team as the swim lane going horizontal. So here I can look at that same portfolio in a more graphical way that says, what's IT got on its plate and what stages are those things in? And then if I wanted to look at, what other aspects of the organization are doing, like product development and those types of things, I can look at that as well as dependencies graphically that we might have between those. And then we have roadmap views that come out of this. So the roadmaps here can also be flexible. And here, for example, these are grouped by business unit, but let's say I'm a product-oriented company and I wanted to look at these things by, say, products or product lines or whatever it might be. Those roadmaps can be done by whatever data or metadata you choose to put against your projects and or initiatives. So the key here is that we have flexible ways to work with our portfolio and be able to visualize and work with it and get good information to help us manage those projects as we go on through. If I go back to the list view of my portfolio, there we go. And I want to drill into a particular project. If I go into this support customers using mobile project, and I go into the financials area, one plan gives us the ability to track a variety of different cost types and cost categories. So for example, here, I'm looking at a very detailed time-phased budget that has the cost categories and the time phasing that I want. And that could be done in either monthly, quarterly, yearly, and do custom date ranges and horizons on there. But I could also have things like revised forecasts and actuals or benefits and revenue projected as I build a business case, et cetera, for this project. And as I do that, I can do some comparisons very quickly and look at, say, what's our budget compared to our revised forecast now that we have more information? And I can see the red, yellow, greens is where our forecast is looking like we're spending more in any one given period than we anticipated, or even spending less, for example, and being in the green. So you have a lot of flexibility on how you would do financials here. The same holds true for your resource planning. Many folks have a need to do resource planning, and doing it from more of a top-down capacity planning basis is a good way to get started. And planning things for like this particular project, either by named individuals or by generic resource types like a developer, I can plan in terms of hours, percentages, or FTEs. I could actually do one entry over 6 months and allow me to fill in all those cells just in one entry. And I can also go in and work with it as a spreadsheet and modify this to get very granular in the way that I do that. Once again, you can get down to weekly on these resource capacity plans and be able to look at whatever horizon you want and be able to look at whether or not people are over and under allocated based on this plan that we have, either in the context of this project or looking at maybe alternative resources that we might want to find to be able to staff this project as we go on through. And then we have the ability to do work plans. And in these work plans, we have the ability to do a variety of things. So for example, I talked about this being connected to Microsoft Project for a traditional project plan. This waterfall plan may be the mode that leadership wants to see for commitments and traditional things like milestones and delivery dates and phases. And you may do that, and you might build that right here in one plan or use a connection to a Microsoft project plan. This particular task-based plan is actually based on and synchronizing with a Microsoft Project Professional plan. One plan has an out-of-the-box connector with Project Professional that comes with the tool set. And if we want to look at the source plan that this is coming from, it could either be in Project Online or on your computer. But the idea here is that if somebody's comfortable and proficient and they prefer to use Microsoft Project, we talk about the preference of tools, they could use this as their planning tool and then actually have their project connector, their one plan connector, bring that data to and from Microsoft Project by publishing this information to Project as a native way to just do it right from within Project and get that information over into one plan. Now, you may also in parallel or in lieu of a task-based plan or a traditional waterfall plan, have an Agile backlog. And that Agile backlog might be based upon an Agile tool like Jira or Azure DevOps. This particular project I believe is based on Azure DevOps. And so if you look here, instead of having a traditional waterfall plan, notice I've got a hierarchy of backlog items of feature, user stories, tasks, and bugs, etc. And those are being mapped and brought over from Azure DevOps via the connector that we have with Azure DevOps. So you can either connect and synchronize or open the item in Azure DevOps from here, but the same concept that we use with Microsoft Project applies just as well to Azure DevOps, to Jira, and Project for the web. There's other connectors that are available as well, but the idea you have the flexibility to do the things that you'd like to do there. And other work types you might want are things to track things like issues or change requests or risks or things like that. Those registers can all be handled right here in one plan within Power Apps. Now, the other aspect here in the analyzer is the ability to do what ifs. So when I looked at the portfolio before, and I showed you different ways we can view the portfolio, and then I went in to show you how you could do individual resource capacity plans and financial plans for your individual projects. Well, we can do dual mode up here. So let's just say you're in a prioritization mode. And let's say you want to do some selection of projects or staging of projects. I could come in here and say, let me look at the financial plan. And then look at what the dollars it's going to take to do the portfolio as we have it up above. I can even lay on targets on top of here. So if I have targets here that represent the dollars that I have available each month or quarter or whatever increment you're doing that on, I can see that other than in some certain months, I'm falling pretty well within what I want, but I'm a little over in July and a little over in August. Now, as I prioritize these projects up above based upon the scores that I have, if I go deselecting or selecting projects, for example, that are maybe lower priority, I can see whether or not they impact this or not. I can see it got me within budget by deselecting those two projects. That's one method I could use to actually reconcile this and decide, select which ones I might want to do or not do financially. The other way I might do that is I might look at from a more timeline or schedule basis, like I showed you earlier on. There we go. And when I do that, this time I'll actually show it to you from a more of a resource constraint perspective. So I already looked at the projects from a financial perspective, but let's just say we wanted to look at it from a resource constraint and see what those are. So instead of selecting and deselecting projects, now I can do a combination of these two things. I could do it based on selection and deselection of projects, or I can do a combination of that as well as moving projects out in the timeline and say, what if I stage these things differently and have it update the resource plan below and see if it solves any of the issues I have as I go through here and look at what, if I have issues that might get solved by doing a combination of selection and timing and staging of my projects to see if they fit within our resource plans. And then I can save these scenarios as scenarios that I can revisit later to see which course of action might be the best one for us to take or review them with others in the organization. Another piece here is the aspect of doing resource planning. So I showed you doing resource capacity planning for an individual project, but as a resource manager, I got to have a more global view on those things. So if I come in here, one plan in Power Apps will actually aggregate all of those resource plans into a common view so that I can work with these on a more global or more comprehensive basis. So here, for example, I can see once again in either FTEs or hours or percentages, however I want to look at this. And right now I'm looking at it in FTEs, but you could toggle either way. If I want to look at it in terms of hours, if I want to look at it in terms of FTEs, whatever it might be, I can just change my perspective depending on my preference. And once again, you can plan in weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly increments, or look at them that way depending on how you plan. But the value here is I can look at, say, a Daniel Williams, and I can see the entire litany of projects that he's on and when he's actually allocated to perform on those projects. And you can see he's spread pretty darn thin. We use Daniel quite a bit in here. But I can also see, for example, where I might still have generic business analysts in. And if I have something in the near term that I have not yet figured out who's going to do that, it's a good alert to me that I should probably figure out a body to put on this rather than leave it in a more generic format. And it gives us the ability through negotiations to have either proposed or soft bookings as well as in lieu of committed or hard bookings on those things. And what's nice about this in a single view is you could come in here and say, if I need to find a business analyst for this particular software development project in this time frame, in the integrated experience project, I can actually go into a split screen right here, and I can actually find myself a business analyst. And I can look at what business analysts might be available in that time frame, and it looks like Adam or Amy has the capacity to do that, and I can actually then just replace that resource and substitute that generic for that named individual very quickly here and be able to just get that information, have that reconciliation done all in one mode right while we're in here. On top of that, we have the ability to do reporting. So we leverage Power BI for our reporting engine, and we have a native feed from both the Power Apps and the OnePlan components of this that allow you to have report packs that have the reports become just a natural output of what you normally do. So whether that be portfolio level information or health summaries that you might have on your projects with your KPIs that you want to communicate to others. So this could be done and viewed right within the tool here, within the Power App solution in OnePlan, or it could be done just directly in Power BI. However you consume that for your audience, it's up to you. We also have the ability here to look at project-specific information and have like project-specific status reports generated on the fly and have it just be a natural output with the components in it that you would like to have. So the key here is beyond just what we showed you with the base Accelerator, we're now showing you some pretty sophisticated tools on managing portfolios, doing portfolio analysis, doing what-if scenarios, and be able to do detailed financial planning and resource capacity planning in that mix. Now, on top of that, you could extend this even further. So if you take this into a run mode, let's just say, I can look at the same types of things in this Power App solution, and I could do some things like use areas or audiences to determine what we see. So for example, I'm in here in a project manager role with project manager permissions, and I'm seeing the things traditional. I'm seeing the project requests, I'm seeing portfolios, programs, and projects. I got access to dashboards and reports and that portfolio analyzer that we talked about earlier on. So I'm not going to show those again, that would be redundant. But if I came in here, and then let's just say I was a resource manager, maybe I have a UI here that just gives the resource manager focus on the things that that resource manager needs to work on, like those resource plans I just went through. Or if I am a team member, and I come in here and I really just need to see the my work area and my timesheet or my time off or a place where I can put project requests in. That might be all I need to see to do my work as I go through there. And then it'll render that my work area I showed you earlier on. We might have something now for the EPMO that might be a broad or have everything, you know, the kitchen sink in it. So it has all those things in here, as well as potentially strategy, like we talked about earlier on the slides, that you could have a strategic level in here where I have objectives and key results and a list of strategies in here. Or I might have demand management where I might have ideation as well as project requests. The idea here is that you can have as many entities in here as you need to define the business and the aspects of the business you want. And on the strategy level, if I had an executive role, for example, this example would say, hey, what are the objectives and key results that I have that I'm going to work with as an executive, and what am I tracking here on these strategies and objectives that we're trying to fulfill? Here, OnePlan within Power Apps comes in really handy. It gives me the ability to define what those objectives are, and subordinate to those objectives have tangible key results. So for example, I might have an objective to grow our corporate global business, but we want to then have as tangible measures, hit company global sales target, achieve 100% of year-to-year sales growth, or reduce churn to less than 5%, and be able to actually have within that measures that you can work with saying, our target number is $100 million, and we're at 44 million so far. So we're at 44% of that. And given where we're at in the fiscal year, we're considered to be on track. And we can actually do status reports on all of these things, whether it be projects or objectives, and save those status reports in a way that makes sense and put those out to people in either PDFs, Word, or email if they don't have access to get in here into the solution. So the piece I wanted to convey in this last piece is the sky's the limit on what you would like to include in this solution, as far as from the strategic level on down through the portfolios and programs and projects to the resource management side of things, and then the reporting you would like to do around all that. It gives us the ability to really have a robust solution, and whether you're in a crawl, walk, run state, and if you aspire to what you see in that run state, you can roadmap this in phased approaches so that you can adopt in a way that the organization can absorb, but ultimately get to where you'd like to be from an overall project and portfolio management maturity, and really be in a full adaptive mode. So with that, I'd like to go back to a summary and a wrap up. So today, what we've shown you is a modern user experience that, as we talked about with the issues of the modern work management, it's expected by today's workforce. We've also talked about how Power Apps is Microsoft's platform now for business solutions in a low code or no code mode. The Common Data Service provides a common repository for all projects and other work, as well as other things you might do in your organization. It's a flexible platform. It's not just limited to your project and portfolio management needs. And OnePlan provides pre-configured adaptive PPM solutions for the Power Platform. Most of what you saw here today, you can install and use a base of that and just add fields of data and other components in there as you see fit incrementally. It also incorporates tools appropriate for the user role, maturity, and type of work. We talked about using different tool sets, whether it be Project for the Web, Azure DevOps, or Jira. Hence, it supports a variety of execution methodologies. And also talked about how teams can continue to be agile, but leadership can get the visibility and the metrics they require translated up into things that make sense to them, like in dollars, cents, and other KPI metrics. It also improves adoption by streamlining your access and navigation to having one place to go and one source of entry, so you're not bopping around to different tools, files, and solutions. And also by bringing the connectors in to bring in data from a variety of sources, it eliminates the duplication of effort with duplicate entry, or maybe even having to create manual reports based upon data you already entered. So let us leverage that and get that manual overburdening out of the picture. Ultimately, you're going to have a better user experience. It will drive better participation and better collaboration across all areas of the business. So who is OnePlan Solutions? Well, we are a Microsoft multi-gold certified partner. We have a particular passion for project and portfolio management, and we were actually named in 2019 Microsoft's Global PPM Partner of the Year. And in this 2020 year, we were actually named as the runner-up finalist in that as well. What we do is we help people with business agility transformation, and we don't just do the solution side. We help people on the people, process, and the technology side of things. So we help with portfolio management, applications, and just overall process automation and improvement. And we do it all within all aspects of the Microsoft Cloud. We are here to support you to whatever degree you want to be supported. You may want just help standing up a solution and implementation services. We can do that. You want training in both the solutions and in the disciplines. We have that as well. We can support you ongoing if you would like us to do that. And we have advisory services as you go through your transformations and things like Agile transformation, standing up and maturing PMOs, and other aspects of that transformation journey. We work with very significant customers. Just some of our significant OnePlan Enterprise customers, there's a sampling here. There's some very familiar names to you up here. And we can do that for you. And even if you're not a giant mega corporation, we have solutions that can fit you if you're a smaller size organization as well. If you like what you saw here today, we could provide you a roadmap workshop, which is a way for us to work with you and review your current use of tools. assess your current requirements and desired future states that you aspire to, and determine what it would take to get you there, both from an implementation roadmap and a cost of ownership to get these tools. You could also get started today with the PPM Accelerator. It's free up in Microsoft's App Source. If you go up into App Source and search on the PPM Accelerator, you'll find this. We built this for Microsoft, and it's up there now available for you today, and we're happy to support you in your use and the implementation of that. Also, the adaptive PPM configuration for OnePlan is also up there in App Source, so you can trial that as well. So what's next? Either try out the Accelerator, or separately or in addition to trial the OnePlan adaptive PPM. Take advantage of our offer on a free roadmap workshop, or if this was a generalized demo and you have specific needs, reach out to us and we'll give you a personalized one-on-one demo so that you can actually see this in context of the needs that you have and for your business and your industry. Speaking of industries, our next webinar is going to have a vertical industry focus. Similar topic, but it's going to be about streamline your manufacturing projects with adaptive portfolio management. That's going to be next Thursday at the same time. When you get the slides, if you're interested, the hyperlink to get to the registration page is right down below. And with that, I'd like to thank you for carving an hour out of your valuable time today. You can look out more of us at oneplan.ai. At oneplan.ai/webinars, there's a whole roster of on-demand, pre-recorded, and some upcoming webinars. And generally, you can reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai, or you can reach out to me individually if you like at jpatterson@oneplan.ai.